Yo, what's going on, guys? Let me tell you something right now. Stop whatever you're doing. Put down your phone. Close your other tabs. Because what I'm about to tell you might be one of the most legendary crossover moments in basketball history. And I'm not talking about a crossover on the court. I'm talking about something way bigger. Something that could literally change the sneaker game, the WNBA, the NBA, and everything we thought we knew about basketball collaborations forever. Steph Curry, yes, the Stephen Curry, the greatest shooter to ever live, the man who revolutionized the three-point line, the four-time NBA champion, was just spotted wearing Caitlin Clark sneakers. Bro, let that sink in for a second. Steph Curry, Caitlin Clark shoes, on his feet, shooting from a logo. And let me tell you right now, this ain't no accident. This is calculated. This is intentional. This is massive. Now, before we dive deep into what this could mean, and trust me, we're gonna break this down from every single angle, let me just set the stage for why this moment is so absolutely insane. Because some of you might be thinking, okay, it's just shoes. What's the big deal? Nah. You don't understand. This is about legacy. This is about money. This is about two of the most iconic shooters from two different worlds coming together in a way nobody saw coming. Or maybe we all saw it coming. Think about it. Caitlin Clark has been called the female Steph Curry since she was draining threes from a logo at Iowa. The range? Ridiculous. The confidence? Unmatched. The way she pulls up from 30 feet like it's nothing? That's Curry territory, bro. That's sacred ground in basketball. And for years, people have been making that comparison. Some people say it's accurate. Some people say she's closer to a Tyrese Halliburton or even a Magic Johnson with a jumper. But you know what? At the end of the day, the Steph Curry comparison is the one that stuck. It's the one that went viral. It's the one that defined her brand. And now Steph himself is rocking her shoes. The validation is insane. But here's where it gets really interesting. And this is where I need you to pay close attention. Because this is where the story takes a turn that nobody is talking about yet. You see, this isn't just about respect. This isn't just about Steph being like, oh, Caitlin's dope, let me wear her kicks. Nah, there's business behind this. There's strategy. There's a whole chess game being played right now, and most people don't even see the board. Let me break it down. Steph Curry has Curry Brand, right? It's been under Armour for years. But there have been rumors, heavy rumors, about what's going to happen when Steph eventually leaves or when deals get restructured. And guess who signed with Nike? Guess who is one of the biggest sneaker deals in women's sports history? Yeah, Caitlin Clark. So now you've got Steph Curry, who's reportedly looking at Nike options when his deal situation changes, literally wearing the shoes of Nike's biggest female basketball investment. Coincidence? Bro, in this business, there are no coincidences. Everything is calculated. Every photo, every post, every retweet. And speaking of reposts, yo, this is the part that really got me. Caitlin Clark herself reposted the image of Steph in her shoes. Not just liked it, reposted it. That's a cosign. That's an acknowledgement. That's her saying, yeah, we're connected. And if that wasn't enough, Steph's trainer, his actual trainer, was posting about it too, hyping it up like they wanted the world to see this. So the question becomes, what are they building toward? Is this just a one-time thing, a cool moment for the internet to freak out about? Or is this the beginning of something massive? Something that could reshape how we think about collaborations between the NBA and the WNBA? Something that could finally bridge the gap between men's and women's basketball in a way we've never seen before? Because let me tell you something, if Steph Curry and Caitlin Clark actually team up on a sneaker collab, if we actually see Curry Brand and Nike merge forces around the two greatest shooters in their respective leagues, bro, that's not just history. That's a cultural earthquake. And we're just getting started. Because what happens next? That's where things get really crazy. All right, so let's talk about the elephant in the room, the comparison. The never-ending debate that has followed Caitlin Clark since she first started bombing threes from the parking lot at Iowa. Is Caitlin Clark really the female Steph Curry? And more importantly, does it even matter anymore? Look, I've heard every take on this. I've seen people argue that the comparison is perfect. I've seen people argue that it's lazy. I've seen hot takes, cold takes, nuclear takes. But here's what I think, and I want you guys to really hear me out on this, because I think this is where a lot of people get it twisted. Caitlin Clark is not a carbon copy of Steph Curry. She's not supposed to be. She's her own player with her own style, her own strengths and her own weaknesses. But, and this is a big but, the comparison exists for a reason. The range is real. The confidence is real. The way she can shift momentum with one shot from 30-plus feet, that's Curry energy. That's that same, let me just end this possession from half-court mentality that Steph brought to the NBA. But here's where it gets interesting. Some people argue that Caitlin is actually closer to Tyrese Halliburton. And you know what? I can see it. The playmaking, the vision, the way she controls the tempo of a game, that's very Halliburton-esque. She's not just a shooter. She's a floor general. She makes everyone around her better. And that's something people sometimes forget when they're just focused on the deep threes. Other people say she's more like Magic Johnson with a jump shot. And honestly, that's a crazy comparison, but I don't hate it. Magic was all about showtime, about making a spectacular pass, about controlling the game with his IQ and his flair. Caitlin has that. She has that, I'm going to do something crazy and make it look easy energy that Magic had. But here's the thing. None of these comparisons really capture everything that Caitlin is. Because Caitlin Clark is becoming her own category. She's becoming the standard that future players will be compared to. And that's the real legacy play here. Now, let's tie this back to Steph. Because the reason the Curry comparison stuck more than any other is because of the cultural moment. Steph Curry changed basketball. He made the three-pointer the most important shot in the game. He made it acceptable. No, he made it encouraged to shoot from 30 feet. Before Steph, if you pulled up from the logo, your coach would bench you. After Steph, it's a highlight. It's a weapon. It's expected. Caitlin Clark is doing the same thing for women's basketball. She's expanding what's possible. She's making coaches rethink their defensive schemes. She's making opponents guard her from the moment she crosses half court. That influence, that gravity, that Steph Curry impact. And that's why the comparison resonates so deeply. But here's where things get really spicy. And I want you guys to think about this for a second. What if the comparison was always meant to lead to something more? What if, from the very beginning, the universe was setting up a moment where these two icons would actually connect? Where the female Steph Curry narrative would stop being just comparison and start being a partnership? Because that's what we might be witnessing right now. Steph wearing Caitlin's shoes isn't just a cool photo op. It's a signal. It's Steph saying, I see you, I recognize what you're doing, and I want to be part of it. And for Caitlin, reposting that image is her saying, let's go, let's build something together. Now, I know some of y'all might be skeptical. You might be thinking, bro, you're reading too much into this. It's just shoes. And yeah, maybe I'm connecting dots that aren't there. But let me ask you this. When has anything involving Caitlin Clark been simple? When has anything involving Steph Curry been random? These are two of the smartest, most marketing-savvy athletes on the planet. They don't do things by accident. Every move is calculated. Every post has a purpose. And if Steph's trainer is hyping this up, if Caitlin is reposting it, if the entire internet is buzzing about it, trust me, something is brewing. And what's brewing might be the biggest sneaker collaboration we've ever seen. But before we get there, we need to talk about the business side, because this is where things get really complicated. All right, let's get into the business side of this whole situation, because honestly, this is where the story gets really, really interesting. And I'm talking about millions, maybe billions of dollars on the line. I'm talking about brand strategies, corporate chess moves, and decisions that could reshape the entire sneaker industry. So buckle up, because this is about to get deep. First, let's talk about Steph Curry's current situation. For years, Steph is in the face of Under Armour. He's the reason Curry brand exists. He took a company that was primarily known for compression shirts and turned it into a legitimate basketball sneaker competitor. That's insane when you think about it. Nike has LeBron, KD, Kyrie, John Morant, they have everybody. Adidas has Harden and Dame. And Under Armour, they have Steph. That's it. And it was enough to compete. But here's the thing. Steph is 37 years old now. He's got maybe 2-3 years left in the league, max. And the question becomes, what happens to Curry brand when Steph retires? Does it fade into obscurity like so many other athlete-branded lines? Or does it evolve into something bigger? This is where Nike comes into play. There have been rumors, and I want to emphasize, these are rumors, but they're persistent ones, that Nike is interested in bringing Steph under their umbrella when his Under Armour situation changes. And if that happens, bro, that's a game changer. But here's the problem. Steph is 37. Even if Nike signs him tomorrow, they're not going to have time to develop a full signature shoe line before he retires. The development process takes years. The marketing rollout takes time. By the time a true Nike Steph Curry signature shoe hits shelves, Steph might be retired and doing commentary on TNT. So what's the solution? How does Nike capitalize on signing one of the greatest players ever without having enough time to build a traditional signature line? Enter Caitlin Clark. Think about it. Nike already has Caitlin. They already have her shoe line developed. They already have the marketing infrastructure in place. And Caitlin's shoes are already, and this is wild, the most worn shoes in the NBA. Not by NBA players, obviously, but in terms of cultural penetration, in terms of sales, in terms of visibility. The Caitlin Clark sneakers are everywhere. So imagine this scenario. Nike signs Steph. Instead of rushing to create a new signature shoe, they do something unprecedented. They have Steph play in custom Curry brand versions of Caitlin's shoes. They release limited edition Curry x Clark collaborations. They merge two of the biggest names in basketball, one from the NBA, one from the WNBA, into a single unified sneaker line. The marketing writes itself. The greatest shooters in their respective leagues together on one shoe. The story is perfect. The synergy is perfect. And most importantly, the business makes sense. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, wait, would Steph really play in someone else's shoes? And normally, I'd say no. Steph has ego. He's a champion. He wants his own thing. But here's the deal. This wouldn't be someone else's shoes. This would be a collaboration. This would be Steph and Caitlin together. And for Steph, at this stage of his career, aligning himself with the future of basketball, with Caitlin Clark, who is literally carrying the WNBA right now, might be the smartest legacy move he could make. Because let's be real, Steph's playing legacy is already cemented. He's already a Hall of Famer. He's already the greatest shooter ever. What he's building now is his business legacy, his post-career empire, and attaching himself to Caitlin Clark, who is going to be dominating for the next 15 years. That's generational thinking. That's chess, not checkers. And for Caitlin, having Steph Curry, the godfather of the deep three, literally wearing her shoes, that's the ultimate validation. That's the ultimate stamp of approval. That takes her from the female Steph Curry to Steph Curry's partner. That's a completely different level. But here's where it gets even crazier. Because there's another possibility that nobody is talking about yet. What if Caitlin shows up to NBA All-Star Weekend? Yo, let me paint a picture for you right now. It's February. NBA All-Star Weekend. The biggest celebration of basketball talent on the planet. The three-point contest is about to go down. All the sharpshooters are lined up. Dame Lillard, Buddy Hield, Whoever else made the cut, the crowd is hyped, the arena is packed, and then the lights dim. The announcer comes on. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a special guest competitor tonight. And out walks Caitlin Clark. Bro, can you even imagine? Can you imagine the absolute pandemonium that would ensue? The internet would literally break. Twitter would crash. Instagram would crash. TikTok would explode. It would be the most talked about moment in All-Star Weekend history. And I'm not exaggerating. This would be bigger than any dunk contest, any skills challenge, any celebrity game. This would be historic. Now, I know what you're thinking. There's no way. The NBA would never let that happen. The WNBA would never let that happen. There's too much politics, too much corporate stuff, too many egos involved. And you might be right. Under normal circumstances, this would never happen. But here's the thing. Nothing about Caitlin Clark is normal circumstances. This is a woman who sold out arenas that had never been sold out before. This is a woman who broke viewership records that people said would never be broken. This is the woman who has single-handedly brought more attention to women's basketball than anyone in history. When Caitlin Clark is involved, normal rules don't apply. And here's the kicker. Caitlin herself has talked about this. She's always said that her priorities are about helping the WNBA first. She said things like, I want my first major moment to be in the WNBA, not the NBA. She wants to build up women's basketball, not just use it as a stepping stone to NBA relevance. And I respect that. I genuinely respect that mentality. But here's the reality. There are rumors, and again, these are just rumors at this point, that the WNBA might face some serious challenges in the coming years. Ownership changes, league restructuring, potential franchise moves. Nothing is guaranteed. And if the WNBA is facing uncertainty, then maybe, just maybe, Caitlin showing up at NBA All-Star Weekend isn't about leaving the WNBA behind. It's about shining an even bigger spotlight on women's basketball. Think about it. If Caitlin competes in the three-point contest and drains shots from the logo in front of millions of viewers, what happens? People start paying even more attention to the WNBA. People who might never watch a WNBA game suddenly become curious. They think, wait, if she can shoot like that against NBA range, I need to see what she does in her actual league. It becomes the biggest advertisement for the WNBA that has ever existed. And Caitlin would be doing it not for herself, but for the entire league. For every woman who has ever played professional basketball and deserved more recognition. And if Steph Curry is there, if Steph is at All-Star Weekend wearing Caitlin's shoes, if he's hyping her up, if they're doing joint press conferences, bro, the crossover potential is insane. The marketing synergy is off the charts. Nike would have the biggest moment in sneaker history just handed to them on a silver platter. Now, let me be clear. I'm not saying this is definitely going to happen. All-Star Weekend is like a month away, and there's been no official announcement, but the timing is suspicious. Steph wearing Caitlin's shoes now, the trainer posting about it, Caitlin reposting it. It feels like they're building towards something. And you know what? Even if Caitlin doesn't show up at All-Star Weekend this year, the seed has been planted. The conversation is happening. And once that conversation starts, it's only a matter of time before it becomes reality. Because here's what I've learned covering sports for this long. When two stars are this aligned, when the business makes this much sense, when the cultural moment is this ripe, something always happens. Maybe not immediately, maybe not exactly how we expect, but something happens. And speaking of things happening, let me tell you about something that went down recently that most people completely missed. Something that might be even more significant than the shoe photo. Okay, so here's something that I need to bring up because it's been bugging me, and I think it's way more important than people realize. There was a tweet, a specific tweet, that was hyping up Luka Garza. You know, Luka Garza, right? Former Iowa teammate of Caitlin Clark's. Played together. Had that connection. Well, This tweet was making the rounds, getting people talking, and then it disappeared. Now, I don't know if the person who posted it deleted it, or if they blocked certain people from seeing it, or what. But the fact that it vanished is interesting to me, because in this business, in this world of sports media and marketing, things don't just disappear for no reason. Someone made a decision. Someone didn't want that tweet out there anymore. Why? What was in it that was so sensitive? Was there information about Caitlyn's future? About potential collaborations? About behind-the-scenes deals that weren't supposed to be public yet? I'm not saying I have all the answers here. I'm just saying, pay attention. When things get deleted, when information gets scrubbed, that usually means something important is happening behind closed doors. And right now, with all the Steph Curry stuff going on, with all the speculation about Nike and Curry brand, everything feels connected. But let me pivot here, because I want to talk about something else that's been on my mind. The Caitlin Clark shoe deal itself. And I'm going to be honest with you guys. I think she signed the worst shoe deal ever. Now, before you come at me in the comments, let me explain. When Caitlyn signed with Nike, it was the biggest shoe deal in women's basketball history at the time. It was groundbreaking. It was historic, and she deserves credit for that. She opened doors for every female athlete who comes after her. But here's the thing. The market has changed so dramatically since she signed that deal. The WNBA's visibility has exploded. Caitlyn's own star power has gone through the roof. If she were signing that deal today, she'd probably get 3 times, maybe 4 times as much money, maybe more. And that's the tragedy of being a pioneer. When you're in early, when you're the first to break through, you never get paid what you're truly worth. You're blazing the trail, and the people who come after you get to walk on a paved road. It's not fair, but it's how it works. Think about it like this. The WNBA players who sign deals in 2026, in 2027, in 2028, they're going to make so much more money than players who sign in 2022 or 2023. They're going to benefit from all the groundwork that Caitlyn laid. They're going to get the massive contracts, the equity deals, the global partnerships. And Caitlyn, she'll be locked into a deal that made sense at the time, but looks small in hindsight. Now, this is where the Steph Curry connection becomes really interesting. Because if Caitlyn can somehow leverage a Curry collaboration, if she can tie her brand to Steph's brand, if she can become part of something bigger than just her individual Nike deal, that might be her way out. Not literally getting out of the deal, but maximizing its value, making the deal work for her in ways that Nike didn't anticipate, turning a good deal into a legendary deal through sheer force of personality and strategic partnerships. And I think that's what we're seeing here. I think Caitlyn is smart enough to recognize that her shoe deal, as big as it was, isn't enough. She needs more. She needs bigger moments, bigger collaborations, bigger cultural touchstones. And Steph Curry? He's the biggest touchstone she could possibly get. But here's the flip side. Steph needs Caitlyn too. And that's what makes this potential partnership so perfect. It's not one-sided. It's not charity. It's mutual benefit. It's 2 icons recognizing that together, they're more powerful than apart. Let me tell you why Steph needs this just as much as Caitlyn does. All right, let's talk about Steph Curry's situation, because I don't think people fully understand the position he's in right now. On the surface, everything looks great. He's a 4-time champion. He's a 2-time MVP. He just won Olympic gold. He's cemented as one of the greatest players in NBA history. The legacy is secure. But, and this is a big but, the business side of things is complicated. Steph is 37 years old. Let's be real about what that means. He's got maybe 2, 3 years left of playing at a high level. After that, it's retirement, television deals, business ventures, and trying to stay relevant in a league that moves on from its legends faster than ever. And the Curry brand situation is tricky. Under Armour, Steph built something special. He created a legitimate competitor in a space dominated by Nike. But Under Armour stock has struggled. Their basketball presence has dwindled. And without Steph actively playing, what happens to Curry brand? Does it survive? Does it thrive? Or does it slowly fade away like so many other athlete branded lines? This is the existential question that Steph has to be asking himself. And the answer, I believe, is that he needs to attach Curry brand to something or someone bigger than himself. Enter Caitlin Clark. Think about it. Caitlin is 22 years old. She's going to be dominating women's basketball for the next 15 years, minimum. She's the most marketable female athlete in the world right now. Her ceiling is unlimited. If Steph can connect his brand to her trajectory, he's not just securing his legacy, he's securing his business empire for decades to come. And here's the beautiful irony. For years, Caitlin was compared to Steph. She was a female Steph Curry. But now, there's a scenario where Steph's post-playing relevance might depend on Caitlin. The student becomes a master. The comparison becomes a reality. I know that might sound crazy, but think about the math. When Steph retires, who's wearing Curry brand shoes? Who's representing the line? Who's keeping it alive in the public consciousness? If there's no active superstar attached to the brand, it dies. Simple as that. But if Caitlin is wearing Curry brand, or if there's a Curry-Clark hybrid line, then suddenly Steph's business interests are protected. His legacy continues. His brand stays relevant. And every time Caitlin drains a 30-footer, people think of Steph. That's generational wealth. That's generational impact. That's the kind of thinking that separates smart athletes from genius business people. And the thing is, Steph has always been smart. He's always been ahead of the curve. He was early on tech investments. He was early on production companies. He was early on athlete empowerment. So it would make complete sense for him to be early on this, on recognizing that the future of basketball marketing might be about collaboration rather than competition. The NBA and WNBA have always been separate in people's minds. Different leagues, different stars, different conversations. But Caitlin Clark is changing that. She's making women's basketball mainstream in a way it's never been before. And the brands that recognize this, the athletes that recognize this, are going to be the ones who win. Steph wearing Caitlin's shoes isn't just a cool photo. It's a statement. It's him saying, I see the future and I want to be part of it. It's him positioning himself for the next era of basketball culture. And honestly, I respect it. I respect the vision. I respect the humility it takes for a four-time champion to recognize that a young WNBA player might be the key to his business future. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. But the question remains, is this actually happening? Is there really a deal in the works? Or are we all just reading too much into a pair of sneakers? Let me tell you why I think something is definitely brewing okay. Let's talk about the signs. The actual, concrete, undeniable signs that something is happening between Steph Curry and Caitlin Clark. Because I'm not just speculating here. I'm not just making stuff up for content. There are breadcrumbs, and they're leading somewhere. First sign, Steph's trainer. This is huge. Steph Curry's actual, real-life trainer was posting about the Caitlin Clark shoe thing. Not just posting, hyping it up, celebrating it, drawing attention to it. Now, think about this. If you're a professional trainer for one of the biggest athletes in the world, you don't just randomly post stuff. Everything is coordinated. Everything is strategic. Every post goes through the team, through the management, through the PR people. So if Steph's trainer is out here amplifying the Caitlin Clark connection, that's not an accident. That's a signal. That's the camp telling the world, pay attention to this. Second sign, Caitlin's repost. Now, I mentioned this earlier, but let me dig deeper. Caitlin Clark is not a random poster. She's not someone who just shares things for no reason. When she posts about basketball, there's usually a purpose. She's promoting something, or she's signaling something, or she's setting up something. So when she reposts the image of Steph in her shoes, immediately, with no hesitation, that's intentional. That's her acknowledging the connection. That's her telling her millions of followers. This is significant. And when someone with Caitlyn's platform does that, it means something is in the works. Third sign, the timing. Steph wearing Caitlyn's shoes now, at this exact moment, is not random. We're heading into All-Star Weekend. We're heading into the stretch run of the NBA season. We're heading into the WNBA offseason, where deals get made and partnerships get formed. This is a perfect time to plant seeds for something bigger. If a Curry-Clark collaboration is going to be announced, when would it happen? Probably during All-Star Weekend, when all eyes are on basketball. Probably in the next few months, before the WNBA season starts. The timing of this shoe moment fits perfectly with that timeline. Fourth sign, the industry chatter. Now, I can't reveal all my sources here, but people in the sneaker industry have been talking. There's been whispers about Nike making moves to consolidate their basketball roster. There's been whispers about Curry Brand's future. There's been whispers about unprecedented collaborations between NBA and WNBA players. I'm not saying I have inside information about a specific deal. I'm saying that the general direction of the industry suggests something like this is coming. And Steph and Caitlyn are the two most obvious candidates to lead that charge. Fifth sign, the narrative alignment. This is maybe the most important one. In marketing, everything is about narrative. And the narrative of Steph and Caitlyn is too perfect to be ignored. Think about it. Steph is the OG, the player who changed the game, the one who made the logo 3 acceptable. Caitlyn is the next generation, the player who took what Steph created and applied it to women's basketball. The passing of the torch narrative writes itself. And for Nike, this is gold. They can sell both players simultaneously. They can tell a story that spans both leagues. They can create content that appeals to NBA fans and WNBA fans alike. It's the ultimate crossover, not just between leagues, but between generations. So when I look at all these signs together, the trainer's posts, Caitlyn's repost, the timing, the industry chatter, the narrative alignment, I can only come to one conclusion. Something is definitely happening. This isn't random. This isn't coincidence. This is the early stages of something massive. But here's the thing. We don't know exactly what yet. We don't know if it's a shoe collab, a commercial campaign, a joint business venture, or something else entirely. All we know is that the pieces are moving. And in a minute, I'm going to tell you my best prediction for what this collaboration actually looks like. All right, prediction time. Based on everything we've talked about, the business realities, the marketing opportunities, the signs we've seen, here's what I think is going to happen. And I want you guys to remember this prediction so you can come back and call me a genius when it comes true, or roast me in the comments if I'm completely wrong. Either way, let's go. Prediction number 1. Steph Curry signs with Nike within the next 18 months. His Under Armour situation will get restructured or expire, and Nike will make him an offer he can't refuse. But here's the twist. It won't be a traditional signature shoe deal. Steph is too old for Nike to invest in a full signature line. Instead, it'll be an executive role, an ambassador position, something that gives him equity and long-term involvement with the brand. Prediction number 2. When Steph joins Nike, Curry Brand comes with him. Nike doesn't want to start from scratch. They want the intellectual property, the designs, the brand recognition that Steph has already built. So they'll acquire Curry Brand or create a joint venture that keeps Curry Brand alive under the Nike umbrella. Prediction number 3. The first major Curry Brand X Nike release will be a Caitlyn Clark collaboration. This is the move. This is the moment. Rather than trying to rush out a new Steph shoe, they'll combine forces. They'll create a hybrid line that features both Steph and Caitlyn. Maybe it's called Range or Deep or something that speaks to both of their games. The marketing will be about legacy, about passing the torch, about the future of shooting. Prediction number 4. Steph wears a Curry x Clark collab during his final NBA season. Imagine Steph's last year in the league, running around in shoes that represent both his legacy and the future of basketball. The storytelling is incredible. The emotional resonance is off the charts. Every game becomes a commercial for the collaboration. Prediction number 5. Caitlin becomes the face of Curry brand post-Steph. This is the long game. Once Steph retires, Curry brand needs a new star. And who better than the player who was already compared to him? Caitlin takes over the brand, keeps alive, and builds on the foundation that Steph created. It's a seamless transition that benefits everyone. Now, I know these are bold predictions. I know I'm going out on a limb here, but honestly, I think this makes too much sense not to happen. The business logic is sound. The marketing potential is massive. The timing is perfect. And here's what I really believe. Steph and Caitlin both see this. They're both smart enough to recognize the opportunity. That's why we're seeing these breadcrumbs. That's why Steph's camp is hyping this up. That's why Caitlin is engaging. They're building towards something, even if they can't announce it yet. The only question is whether Nike is smart enough to make it happen. And honestly, I think they are. Nike has always been about storytelling. They've always been about moments. And the Steph-Caitlin collaboration is the biggest potential story in basketball right now. But let me tell you about one more possibility that could change everything. Something that might happen sooner than any of us expect. What if Caitlin and Steph actually train together this offseason? I'm not talking about a quick photo op. I'm not talking about a sponsored meet and greet. I'm talking about real, legitimate basketball training. Steph teaching Caitlin his secrets. Caitlin picking the brain of the greatest shooter ever. Weeks of working together, building a relationship, creating content that documents the entire process. Now, I mentioned earlier that Steph's trainer was posting about the shoe thing, and that got me thinking. Trainers don't just post randomly. They're promoting their work. They're building their brand. And what better way to build your brand than documenting training sessions with two of the most famous shooters in basketball? Imagine the content. Imagine the YouTube videos, the Instagram Reels, the TikToks. Steph Curry teaches Caitlin Clark his signature move. Caitlin beats Steph in a three-point shooting contest. The greatest shooters alive go head-to-head. This stuff writes itself. The views would be insane. The engagement would be off the charts. And from Nike's perspective, free advertising. They don't even have to create commercials. The organic content from training sessions would do all the work. Every video is a promotion for their shoes, their brand, their partnership. Now, I don't know for sure if this is happening. There's been no official announcement, but the pieces are there. Steph's trainer is clearly interested in Caitlin. Caitlin has always expressed admiration for Steph. The WNBA offseason is coming up, which gives Caitlin time to train. And Steph's always looking for ways to stay relevant during the NBA season. If I had to bet, I'd say we see some kind of training content involving Steph and Caitlin within the next 6 months. Maybe during the WNBA offseason. Maybe during the NBA's breaks. But it's coming. I can feel it. And here's why this matters beyond just the content. It's about legitimacy. It's about validation. For years, WNBA players have been fighting for respect. They've been fighting to be taken seriously as athletes. And when Steph Curry, arguably the most influential active NBA player, publicly trains with and learns from a WNBA player, that changes the conversation. It says that the best in the NBA recognize the best in the WNBA. It says that there's mutual respect between the leagues. It says that women's basketball isn't some lesser version of the game. It's basketball, period. And Caitlin Clark, with all her visibility and influence, is the perfect person to lead that charge. She's already made it cool to watch the WNBA. She's already brought casual fans into fold. A Steph Curry partnership would take that to another level entirely. But there's one more thing I want to address before we wrap up. Because I know some of you have been thinking about this the whole time. The haters. We got to talk about the haters. Because anytime Caitlin Clark does anything, literally anything, there are people ready to tear her down. She scores 40 points. The WNBA is weak, doesn't count. She gets a shoe deal. It's just because she's white. She gets compared to Steph? Disrespectful to an NBA legend. Steph wears her shoes? Just a publicity stunt, means nothing. I see you, haters. I see you in the comments. I see you on Twitter. I see you everywhere. And I want you to know something. You're part of the story. Every time you hate on Caitlin Clark, you make her bigger. Every negative comment, every dismissive tweet, every she's overrated post, it adds fuel to the fire. It keeps her name in the conversation. It keeps people talking, clicking, engaging. You're literally helping her brand by trying to tear it down. And the beautiful thing? Caitlin knows this. She's smart enough to let the hate roll off her back. She uses it. She feeds off it. Every doubter becomes motivation. Every critic becomes a target to prove wrong. And now she's got Steph Curry wearing her shoes. She's got one of the greatest players ever co-signing her legacy. What are the haters going to say now? That Steph Curry doesn't know basketball? That the four-time champion doesn't recognize greatness when he sees it? Come on. At some point, you have to accept reality. Caitlin Clark is a phenomenon. Caitlin Clark is changing the game. And Caitlin Clark is just getting started. So let me bring this all together. What did we learn today? We learned that Steph Curry wearing Caitlin Clark sneakers is not just a random occurrence. It's a signal of something bigger. We learned that there's a business case for a Curry-Clark collaboration that benefits both athletes and Nike. We learned that the timing, the social media activity, and the industry chatter all point towards something major brewing. We learned that Caitlin's shoe deal, while historic, might have room for expansion through strategic partnerships. We learned that Steph, at 37, is thinking about his post-playing legacy and sees value in connecting with the next generation. We learned that the narrative alignment between these two shooters is too perfect to ignore. And most importantly, we learned that in the world of sports marketing, nothing happens by accident. When Steph's trainer posts about Caitlin, when Caitlin reposts Steph, when the internet goes crazy over a pair of shoes, there's intention behind it. There's strategy. There's a vision. So what happens next? Honestly, I don't know for certain. Nobody does. But I know this. I'll be watching. I'll be following every breadcrumb, analyzing every post, tracking every rumor. And when the announcement drops, because it will drop, I'll be here to break it down for you guys. Until then, I want to hear from you in the comments. What do you think is happening between Steph and Caitlin? Do you think this is the start of something big, or is it all just hype? Do you want to see them collaborate? Do you want to see Caitlin at All-Star Weekend? Drop your thoughts below. Let me know what you're thinking. And if you made it this far in the video, you're a real one. You're part of the community. You're one of the people who actually cares about this stuff, who wants to understand a deeper story, who doesn't just watch for 10 seconds and click away. So smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, turn on the notification bell so you don't miss anything, because when the Steph Caitlin news breaks, and it will break, you're going to want to be here. This is just the beginning. Y'all, the Caitlin Clark era is in full effect, and now it might have a Steph Curry stamp on it. Let's see where this goes. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.